Previously on the Originals. Lucien, seeking revenge on Klaus, bit Camille, marking the end of her life. Cole, unable to resist the witch's ancestors' curse, tragically killed Davina. Aurora, having consumed the powerful serum that made her impossible to kill, was placed under a spell, forcing her into an eternal sleep. The object wrapped up like a zonzi in this package is the millennia-old vampire, Aurora. Vincent mentions that he's working on a method to extract the serum from Aurora's heart, but he suddenly gets a call from Marcel and has to leave in a hurry. Freya says she needs to set up a witchcraft alarm so she can know immediately when any witch is about to harm her family. Marcel proposes sacrificing Davina to the ancestral witches, but Cole refuses, arguing that the ancestors won't spare Davina. Vincent, however, suggests that Davina could be sacrificed in a safe place, but it would require a powerful source of magic. Marcel decides to seek help from the Originals family. Cole believed his brothers wouldn't step in to help, but Klaus unexpectedly agreed. He didn't want his brother to suffer the same loss of a loved one that he had endured. Freya states that if they can place Davina's soul within a witchcraft circle, they can ensure her safety. As the three siblings are discussing, a nearby candle suddenly ignites on its own. Klaus assumes that Lucien will strike at him first, but then the portrait of Rebecca hanging on the wall suddenly catches fire. Freya quickly realizes the magical omen Lucien has set his sights on Rebecca. Klaus reveals that he hid Rebecca's coffin in the bayou and insists he must retrieve it himself to ensure his sister's safety. Haley volunteers to go with him, as she is more familiar with the bayou. Klaus has no choice but to agree, and they decide to head to the bayou together. Freya then begins the ritual to save Davina, connecting with Elijah's power. Meanwhile, Vincent also begins the sacrifice. As the spell works, Davina awakens on the other side. The ancestral witches have been waiting for her and waste no time attacking her. They prepare a brutal punishment, trying to annihilate Davina with a green stone, and she struggles desperately. Luckily, Freya's spell kicks in just in time, and Davina suddenly appears within the witchcraft circle. Davina and Cole look at each other through the circle, but they can't get closer. Cole and his girlfriend were downstairs, expressing how much they missed each other. Meanwhile, Freya informs Elijah that she's found a way to kill Lucien. She can use Davina as a link to tap into the power the ancestral witches used to create Lucien, and with that power, she can wield their mother's magic to kill him. Elijah, however, points out that doing so would break Davina's protective circle. In other words, Davina would be doomed. The siblings find themselves in a terrible dilemma. Van used witchcraft to locate Rebecca's general whereabouts and relayed this information to Lucien. However, Van, now alone, quickly finds himself being targeted by Vincent, who mocks him for becoming a vampire's lapdog. Van retorts that Lucien is merely a pawn of the ancestors, and that no one can stop the ancestors from going after the Michelson family. Vincent strikes Van down, and Cole steps in to lend a hand. Meanwhile, Klaus has already found his sister's coffin. Haley also commends him on how well he's been treating Davina. Klaus advises Haley to seize the time she has with Elijah, as everyone now faces the looming threat of their eternal lives ending at any moment. He urges her not to waste time on stubbornness. Haley expresses her concern that she and Elijah have grown distant for too long, and she wonders if making a move now would be too abrupt. As they chat, Elijah calls, and Klaus suggests that she should talk to him herself. Just as Haley is about to answer the call, a car suddenly crashes into them. Unable to reach them, Elijah grows increasingly anxious. He learns from Van that Lucien has already headed to the bayou, and Freya decides not to hesitate any longer. At the same time, Marcel is having a heart-to-heart with Davina, but Elijah swiftly subdues him. Without saying a word, Freya walks over to Davina, grabs her hand, and begins chanting a spell. Davina cries and pleads not to be sent back. She'll die a horrible death. Marcel tries to rush to save Davina, but Elijah quickly snaps his neck. Freya's spell gradually takes effect, as she absorbs the ancestors' power, and Davina falls back into their grasp, her eyes beginning to bleed. Freya, ignoring Davina's pleas, coldly released her hand, leaving Davina behind on the other side of death. A brutal car accident occurred in the peaceful countryside. Klaus slowly regained consciousness in the driver's seat, only to see Haley severely injured outside the window. Klaus opened the car door, stumbling as he got out and made his way toward Haley, only to be confronted by his archenemy, Lucien. Without a word, Lucien delivered a brutal punch to Klaus, all the while throwing in a few sarcastic jabs. Klaus, enraged, retaliated, but he was no match for the upgraded Lucien. He was quickly overpowered and thrown into the nearby shed. You've never seen Klaus in such a sorry state, covered in dust, bruised, and battered. Lucien closed in on him, and soon they were locked in a fierce struggle, with Lucien's centuries-old rage and resentment being unleashed in full force. In the midst of this dire situation, Haley rushed in and knocked Lucien to the ground with a shovel. They grabbed kitchen utensils and fought in a chaotic melee, but even the two hybrids together were no match for Lucien. Lucien struck Klaus with the shovel, sending him flying. As Klaus struggled to get up, he turned to see Lucien holding Haley's heart in his hand. He stated that he would kill everyone Klaus cared about one by one, and he demanded that Klaus kneel in front of him by threatening Haley's life. The once proud original hybrid slowly bent his knees, sacrificing his pride for Haley's safety, but Lucien's victory was short-lived. Elijah rushed in, knocking Lucien down, and Klaus quickly joined the fight. Freya appeared, chanting a spell, which immobilized Lucien in place. The spell gradually drained the magic from Lucien's blood. When Freya stopped chanting, Lucien's ascent to godhood was completely halted. He reverted to being an ordinary vampire. Elijah disdainfully kicked Lucien to the ground. A dreadful fate awaited Lucien. Klaus taunts Lucien that he has not become a higher species, but just a clown living in his own shadow. Klaus picked up a shard of glass, slashed Lucien's mouth, and without hesitation, ripped out his heart. The brothers locked eyes, having once again joined forces to defeat a powerful enemy and resolve the crisis facing their family. Marcel, heartbroken, placed Davina's body in the witchcraft circle, demanding that Van use magic to bring her back to life. Van recited an incantation, and the nearby brazier ignited on its own. Everyone watched the flickering flame of life with hope, but the flame, unsurprisingly, went out. Davina showed no sign of returning to life. Overcome with grief, Marcel fell to his knees beside Davina's body. Unable to bear the pain, the sorrowful day came to an end, and Marcel drank alone, drowning his sorrows. Klaus and Elijah appeared before him. Marcel, furious, accused them of their selfish actions, saying that despite all he had done to help them, he was still betrayed by the two brothers. The choice to sacrifice an innocent girl to save their brotherhood revealed the coldness and arrogance of the Michelson family to Marcel, and in his anger, he pushed Klaus's hand away and declared that he was cutting ties with their family for good. Cole found Van in the witch's cemetery and told him that while Davina might not have wanted him to do this, now that she was gone, there was no one left in this world who could stop the demon inside him. Cole suddenly sank his fangs into Van's neck, mercilessly taking his life. Vincent couldn't comprehend Freya's actions, sacrificing an innocent girl for the so-called benefit of the family. In his eyes, such actions were nothing short of evil. His friendship with Freya was broken. The Originals family had lost yet another loyal ally and gained a potential enemy. Klaus sat quietly by his daughter's bedside. He seemed to disapprove of his sister and brother's choices, but with things as they were, he couldn't condemn them for the sacrifices they made to save him.
Today I fear we may have created a new monster entirely.
Freya and Elijah were also burdened by their guilty consciences. This was destined to be a long and painful night. Vincent found Marcel and said he didn't like working with vampires, but he couldn't just let what happened to Davina go unanswered. Vincent placed a small vial on the table, revealing that he had extracted the mutant serum from Aurora's heart. Marcel had once summoned Michael to drive away the Originals family, and now he could drink the serum and ascend as a mutated vampire.
New Orleans is our home, Marcel. And it's time we took it back.
In the mirror behind Cole, the shadow of a woman flickered, and he seemed to sense it. The next second, the cards on the table burst into flames without warning. The light in the room dimmed abruptly, the door slammed shut on its own, and even the mirror shattered into pieces for no apparent reason. Curious, Cole looked into the mirror, but suddenly his girlfriend's pale face flashed before him, and blood gushed from his neck. He choked back tears as he expressed his love for her. When he snapped back to reality, Cole realized it was just an illusion. His throat was intact, and the mirror was unharmed. Davina's funeral was simple yet solemn, with her family, friends, and lovers standing by her grave, saying their heartfelt goodbyes. But Cole was too choked up to deliver a eulogy. Marcel, too, declared that grief was useless, vowing that the Michelson family would pay for what they had done. Camille's funeral was a grand and elaborate affair, with her coffin adorned with flowers and a vast procession accompanying it. The Originals brothers even organized a grand farewell banquet in her honor. Camille's former colleague, Kinney, came to pay his respects. Despite being compelled by a vampire and losing all related memories, Kinney's instincts as a cop made him realize that Camille's death was not ordinary. There were no hospital records, number 911 calls, not even a death certificate, but Klaus was unwilling to share more. So Kinney had to leave alone. Kinney found Vincent and voiced his suspicions, saying it seemed like the city was hiding some deep secrets, and he wouldn't let his friend's death become an unsolved mystery. Vincent decided to reveal the entire supernatural world's secrets to Kinney. They went to Vincent's former love nest, a place that had been regarded as haunted ever since his wife, Eva, died. He pushed aside an old sofa and retrieved a small box from a hidden compartment in the wall. Inside was an unknown device that looked like a bomb. It was a device Eva had created to steal the power of the witch ancestors, and it contained a significant amount of magic. He tells Kinney that the witch ancestors were willing to turn all of New Orleans into a battlefield to fight Michael's son. The living shouldn't have to pay for the decisions of the dead, so they needed to detonate the device in the right location to sever the connection between the witch ancestors and the real world, making those old hags disappear once and for all. Armed police stormed into the shop of two witches on charges of animal cruelty, but in reality, it was to allow Kinney to help Vincent obtain the materials needed to activate the bomb. He said he would take the device to the undead world and detonate the bomb in a witch's graveyard on the other side. The police had to ensure the area was cleared of people when the explosion occurred to avoid harming innocent humans. Kinney didn't understand how Vincent planned to carry the bomb into the afterlife.
He's got to die.
Cole appeared and offered to accompany Vincent to the undead world, claiming that Davina was calling out to him for help and that he had to respond. Vincent reluctantly agreed to his request. Davina once used this spell to cross into the spirit world to find her boyfriend, and now Cole is using the same spell to cross back into the spirit world to find her. Both times, it was Josh who served as their link to the real world. Vincent and Cole lay down in the witchcraft circle and simultaneously woke up in the other world. Their souls rose from the ground, while their bodies remained motionless. Lying on the earth, Vincent and Cole approached Davina's tombstone, and Cole, as he had hoped, found Davina there, pale and weak. Davina collapsed into her boyfriend's arms. Vincent set up the magical bomb, intending to sacrifice his own life to detonate it, but Davina insisted that he needed to leave. Once the connection between the witch ancestors and the real world was severed, the witch's power would be greatly diminished, and they would need a leader. Without giving him a choice, Davina sent Vincent back to the real world. The lovers, separated by life and death, shared their final goodbye. Davina asked her boyfriend to relay a message to Josh and Marcel, telling them they were both her best friends and family. Cole began to recount the story of how they first met, how she had rekindled the fire of life in his once hopeless heart. Hearing her boyfriend's heartfelt confession, Davina was deeply moved and kissed him passionately, responding to his love with equal intensity.
I love you too.
Cole awoke in the real world with tears streaming down his face. Davina placed her hands on the magic bomb and activated it with her last ounce of power. In the real world, the witch's cemetery began to shake, and Cole and the others hurriedly ran outside. Cole turned back for one last look.
Give him hell, Davina Claire.
A massive explosion echoed around him, and Davina was consumed in the powerful blast of magic. The connection between the witch ancestors and the real world was severed, and the cemetery crumbled into ruins amid the flames. Freya chanted over a skull, tracing the origins of the prophecy that foretold the doom of her siblings. Elijah lent his energy to his sister to aid in the spell. With the power of the Originals behind her, a flood of prophetic visions flashed through their minds. The enemies, friends, and family they feared were all pointing to the same person, Klaus's adopted son, Marcel. At that moment, Marcel was torn about whether or not to drink the serum, but Josh is against it. He doesn't want Marcel to become an inhuman monster. Drinking the serum is a direct declaration of war against the Originals. It's either you or me. Marcel hesitated and quietly set the serum down on the table. Upon learning the contents of the prophecy, the Originals' siblings decided to act immediately. Freya suspected that Vincent might have extracted the serum from Aurora's body while she was distracted and given it to Marcel, so she insisted on checking. Unaware of the prophecy, Klaus was focused solely on comforting his wounded son. Marcel, like a rebellious teenager, kept testing his place in Klaus's heart. Klaus, acting as the patient parent, repeatedly assured Marcel of his love and his place as part of the family, but Marcel remained skeptical. Klaus decided to take him to a special place. Freya quickly confirmed that the serum had been extracted from Aurora's heart, and she informed Elijah, warning him that Klaus might be in danger and urging him to share the news with Klaus. Father and son arrived at a dilapidated bridge. A young Marcel had once scattered his biological father's ashes into the river from this very spot. Klaus said that from that moment, he recognized Marcel's potential.
And I knew you to be my son.
Klaus officially affirmed their bond, but Marcel wasn't convinced, instead declaring that he had long since repaid any debt he owed Klaus for raising him.
If one of us is standing in the red, I'm gonna say it's you.
As they stood in the beautiful dusk, Klaus looked at the stubborn and angry Marcel with a sense of pride, as if seeing a reflection of himself. He forgave Marcel for his harsh words, trying to appeal to him with love and familial ties, but Elijah's arrival interrupted their conversation. Having seen the prophecy of doom with his own eyes, Elijah approached with hostility toward Marcel. Their conversation quickly became tense, thick with the danger that lurked in the surrounding night. Elijah demanded that Marcel prove his loyalty to the family. Marcel sarcastically retorted that he was being asked to apologize before he had even done anything wrong. Klaus desperately tried to mediate between the two. Marcel then pulled out the vial of serum. This unexpected move left Klaus stunned. Seeing his son holding a biological weapon, the father's calm facade shattered. Klaus's assertiveness only fueled Marcel's resentment.
And all that pretty fairy tale about me being part of the family, that only works if you're in control.
Marcel accused Klaus of valuing power over his love for him as a son. As Elijah watched Marcel's tirade, he was shocked to realize that this was the very scene foretold in the prophecy. With tears in his eyes, he pleaded with Marcel, but Marcel remained unmoved. His emotions growing more intense, the image of his family's brutal deaths flashed through Elijah's mind, and without hesitation, he reached out and ripped Marcel's heart from his chest. Marcel's body collapsed into the water. Klaus watches in pain as his adopted son loses his life. Elijah, devastated, returned to Haley, collapsing at her feet, tearfully confessing what he had done.
It's Marcel. He took his life.
Haley, without asking questions, simply held Elijah in her arms. Josh was shocked beyond words upon learning of Marcel's death. He realized that he had unwittingly caused Marcel's death by convincing him not to drink the serum. Vincent, however, told Josh that it was all part of Marcel's plan. Marcel had pretended not to drink the serum just to see how the Michelson family would react. Deep in the cold river, the lifeless Marcel suddenly opened his blood-red eyes.